Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm a mixed media artist. I live in New Hampshire in the US, and I thought I would do my sketchbook tour outside today. It's Halloween 2025. It's a spooky day. This is my third completed sketchbook, I believe. It's a Stillman and Byrne Delta series. And I believe I started this in March. Yes, it was March 2025 to October 30th, which was yesterday. I was cleaning and moving out of my apartment until 4:30 a.m. yesterday, or today actually, and I'm a little bit tired. I should also mention that I had a stroke in 2021, so when I'm tired, my words kind of slur. So if you can't understand anything I said and have a question, please leave it in the comments and I will answer it for you. This sketchbook was very chaotic for me. I was really excited to start it in March. It was spring, and I wanted to use it to show the transition from spring, like the browns and the grays of the landscape, and then how everything bursts into color during spring. This sticker is from Sophie McPike, and I love how she leaves the leg hair on. But the first page, I also have a print from her, which really represented what I thought spring would be like this year. Just the vivid colors. Every sketchbook I have, I use a word. For this one, I want to use transitions, but because of certain events that happened to me this summer, it was kind of negative, so I went with vicissitudes. And these pictures, I took the selfie during a bad time in my life, and I was having a bad day. I felt ugly, so I just wanted to put pictures that showed me honestly. It's how I looked, how I felt at the time. This quote I put in the very beginning, and it really applied to me all summer. You gotta bloom where you're planted, by Dolly Parton. This sticker is also from Sophie McPike. I think any other sticker in here is also from the Wild Pencil, if I don't mention it later. So my first layout, this was ink, I believe, and it was a March landscape. I'm very nature inspired, but I will make any type of art. I don't try to limit myself to just one thing. I can't draw people very well, but I do love drawing trees. This was just an ice puddle with a cool texture that I saw in the parking lot. This is a moonlit, it was the worm moon in March, the full moon. And I just wanted to show the silhouettes of the trees. So this was a fence. There was a day when I went for a walk and everything was encased in ice. And I tried to show that, the texture of it. I don't know if I did a very good job, but I liked the wood of the fence. And everything in the world was like brown and gray and very dull. This is a Queen Anne's lace, I believe, and it's beaded with ice. And these stickers are the Wild Pencil. Another gray landscape, a brown river. And I like to swatch what I'm using for the painting that I do. These were, it looks like Caran d'Ache colors and maybe some gouache. So the first sign of spring for me is always a robin. So I tried to draw one in her nest. I usually do collage work. This really represents what I do. I use different papers and textures, and I make a silhouette in the middle to show off what's underneath. But again, I went with that brown, dull color palette, which I actually really like, the gold and the teal in it. These were very impressionistic. A river. This was a state school near my home. And again, I used the Caran d'Ache Neocolor Choose. And the first flower that I saw was at the library in Laconia. It was a crocus. And again, Neocolors. These stickers are from Soapy McPike. I was really excited to see color finally coming into the world. Our winters are extremely long and depressing, so springtime is my favorite time of year. These are more flowers that I began to see. Apple blossoms, forsythia, daffodils, and always crocuses. They're always the first. This was a beautiful day where the sunlight was just perfect. It was glowing. This was a tulip tree by a burnt down house in Belmont, New Hampshire. And I didn't know what medium to use to paint this. So again, I was obsessed with my Caran d'Ache Neocolors at the time. So I tried to use those to make the tulip tree, and it came out very soft looking. So this spread is when my life began to change. I lived in my apartment for 3 years, and I lived alone. I had a very stable relationship. My job was stable. Everything was very peaceful, and I expected it to continue that way. And in May, right around when I was doing the spread, my 20-year relationship fell apart. He left me for someone else, and I had a very bad month of just withdrawing from that companionship, and it was both physical and mental pain. So these were supposed to be very detailed, but I couldn't focus enough to really do anything with it. This was the Belknap Mill in Laconia, and there's a park next to it called the Rotary Park. And this homeless man kind of became me with a sad little duck. But again, I couldn't do the detail work. I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't focus. So this was really how I was feeling. Just very dreary. The weather was unseasonably cold and rainy, and my heart was broken. So I tried to show that. And also, it was lilac season, which usually is my favorite flower, but that was the last thing he gave to me, and it kind of broke my heart to look at them. So at this point, I stopped using the sketchbook because I just couldn't make pretty landscapes. My heart wasn't into it. And I switched to a Talon's Art Creation, to this book, which I've done a sketchbook tour about this one too. I made completely different art, and I really didn't think I'd be able to make art at this point because I was so mentally handicapped, but I actually found a lot of creativity. My work was just completely different. I wasn't making landscapes. I went to the middle of the book and I just started making. Just some of the work was embarrassing, very cringy, very emotional, but it was honest. It was how I was feeling. So I worked in this book every day and just made heartbreak art. And eventually I started to feel a little bit better. There came a point where I didn't need this book anymore. I didn't want to do with it. I wanted to make new art. So I stopped working in my Talons book and I switched back to the Stillman and Burns. I think it was in July. This was the first attempt at making art in this book, and it was not a success. I took these pictures in May, and they're beautiful, but the actual art, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't focus on making pretty stuff. But at least I tried. I had a real lack of self-confidence, so I started making art in my other sketchbooks, and then if I liked it, I'd tear it out and tape it into this book. This was a kayaking trip that I took on Merry Meeting River in Alton, and I tried to use acrylic markers for the first time. This was a heron. I saw herons all summer, and I love them. They're one of my favorite birds. I took a lot of solo trips, which was scary for me because I was used to doing things with someone else, but it was actually very exhilarating to go out and do something on my own. So I went to go renew my license, and I went to Lake Shakora, and I went kayaking by myself. It was actually a wonderful day. I'm not good with drawing water, painting water, but I do like how the texture of the wood came out in the bridge. This is really when I started to get into watercolor. I ordered some Schminke super granulation watercolor. They're beautiful, but they're expensive, and I was just playing around with them, the different colors. Just a random mountain scene. The Fireflies came out at the end of June, and I don't drink a lot, but one night I had a couple beers and I had the courage to actually paint in my sketchbook without having to paint in a different sketchbook and rip it out and tape it in this one. So this is the first actual page that I did in here. Again, returning to it. I was trying to build my confidence, and it's very abstract, but I do like how it came out. It's kind of dusky. For my birthday, every year I go to Gilsum Rock Swap, and I took my dog Sadie. This didn't come out too well, my little sketch of her, but she's a beautiful dog. She's sport sheen. She's a good girl. On the way to Gilsum, there is a bridge in Stoddard, and obviously it doesn't look like this, but I wanted to play around with it. I had fun doing this one. I love the way the water is different colors. So these are just little watercolor papers that I taped in here. I went to a barbecue with my son at Alaquia State Park in Guilford, and that was my first attempt at painting sand, which was horrible, but they were just random quick little paintings. And this was a boat ride that we took on Lake Winnipesaukee. So, Spindle Point and the Broads. These were Neocolor, and these I think were gouache. I really liked the way the Neocolor went over the texture of the paper. This was another kayaking trip to Hawkins Pond in Meredith. This was in September, actually, and the colors of the landscape were changing. It was very early autumn. This was my interpretation. I love the gold in this. Obviously, it wasn't this colorful. I added some creative license, but the roots, I loved how they were in the picture. That was a heron I saw on Merry Meeting River, flying away. So I tried to draw the heron with acrylic markers, which I I'd never used before. The kayaking picture in the beginning. He didn't come out too well. And his shadow's a little bit dark, but I do like the woods behind. I think this is mostly watercolor, and then I just did acrylic marker for the heron. I went to the ocean twice by myself and had little solo adventures. I went to Oregon State Park. These are the sandpipers that I saw. They were flying around the edge of the waves. I think it's called murmuration when they all fly in sync. And I saw a white egret for the first time. So across from the ocean, there was a marsh, and there were 2 trees full of them, the white egrets. And they're beautiful. If I had... This was acrylic marker, and I did not have a fine tip, so I couldn't really do a good silhouette of them. But the actual view of them was so gorgeous. This was in August. Periwinkle Cove. I think I did that shell in mostly gouache and a little bit of watercolor. I think that was a tide pool. This was Oregon Cemetery, and it was a sad little cemetery because there were a few normal gravestones in the back of the Oregon family. They were early settlers in the region, but there were Native Americans and other settlers that died in the winter from starvation and sickness, and all they had were field stones with no name. So there were rocks everywhere in the graveyard, and I wanted to sit there and paint that, like a plein air painting, but the bugs were so awful, they were eating me alive, so I had to take a quick picture and run out. I'm horrible at drawing rocks in water, but this was my attempt. There were some thistles in the park. That was one of the pathways. I think they're called cairns, like the altar, the stone. And then the red seaweed. It was really vivid. At Periwinkle Cove, these are everywhere. People build them. It's such a beautiful spot, and I love going there alone. So this was early autumn. Everything was starting to change to gold and red from green. And this was on top of Cotton Hill Road in Guilford. This is the actual picture in August. I had a stain right here, so I turned it into birds. And this little page, I put a little card from the wild pencil artist. It was kind of similar to this view. This again, just a little beignets. This was a fairy house in the Laconia Public Library. And then this was the sturgeon moon. So we took a boat ride in the night that it rose, and it was a blood moon. It was so red, and it was gorgeous. That was in August. I wanted to draw the loons, but I had no motivation, so I just posted a postcard. I tend to swatch everything in my sketchbook that I use. I use a lot of the Kuretake Gansai watercolors. They're cheap, and I don't feel precious about using them, as opposed to like the Schmincke and the Daniel Smith watercolors. And they have some beautiful colors. I had wanted to use ink before the chaos happened this summer, but after that event, I lost interest, but I did swatch it. I do want to get back to ink. I love the textures. It's very similar to watercolor, but also different. These were some of the new watercolors that I got this summer from Schmincke and Daniel Smith. I think my favorite is the Tundra Violet from Schminke. And I also love Lunar Black from Daniel Smith. These are my Neo colors. So I had gotten some Light Wish soft oil pastels, and I really wanted to experiment with them, but I never got around to buying the fixative for it, and they do transfer. So that's something on my to-do list. These are more granulating watercolors that I got from Ganside Tambi. This is a postcard from the Wild Pencil because I don't like to leave pages blank. These were my acrylic Artex markers. I haven't really figured out how to use them yet. They're hard to blend, so I'm still going to work on that. These are Turner acrylic gouache, Japanesque. And I love these because they have almost a sandpaper texture. I also have the Holbein acrylic gouache, a couple colors. And I have the regular artist gouache, which are very vivid. And I do love using these. I mix them with watercolor. I did get the Winsor & Newton Pro Marker watercolors, and I don't think I'll buy them again because I only swatched these maybe 2 months ago, and they're already fading. So I don't think they last too long. Maybe it was the paper that I used. It's very thick paper. I'm not sure, but I'll use these till they dry up, and then I probably won't get them again. So this is the last page. In addition to my 20-year relationship ending, I also lost my apartment, which was like my safe place. I loved having my freedom and decorating it, and I had a lot of happy times there as well as sad times. But the building was sold and my rent was increased a lot, so I couldn't stay there, and I had to move away. And it was very depressing for me. This is my little art area, which doesn't look like much. The apartment was not small, but I spent most of my time just standing here making art. It was my happy place. And that's the last page. In the next sketchbook that I'm going to be doing, oops, sorry. I'm trying to balance everything on a rock outside. It's Escher, and I made this old school paper bag cover because it has a white canvas cover and I don't want to get it dirty. But it's cold press, and I've already found that the texture of the paper is so interesting. So I can't wait to start working in this new sketchbook in my new home. And I'm glad I got my old sketchbook finished before I moved out of my apartment last night. So thank you for watching my video. If you have any questions, please leave them below. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, everyone.